Our friends often admired us as the perfect couple. Laura had been invited charity gala. The night of the gala arrived. As the evening progressed, I noticed Laura becoming increasingly distant. She excused herself from conversations, her phone constantly in hand, her eyes darting around the room with a nervous energy I couldn't quite place. A week later, everything changed. Laura discovered she was pregnant. The news should have been a joyous one, but it quickly turned sour when she insisted that the child wasn't mine. Her demeanor shifted dramatically, cold, defensive, and unyielding. She became distant, her once warm and vibrant personality now shadowed by suspicion and hostility. I was blindsided. Our relationship had never been perfect, but I had never suspected she was capable of infidelity. Determined to uncover the truth, I requested a DNA test. The results confirmed my worst fears. The child was not mine. Confronting Laura was the hardest thing I've ever done. She was unapologetic, dismissive, and downright cruel. Her lies piled up, each one more despicable than the last, as she tried to justify her actions and turn the situation around to make me the villain. The days following the DNA test were a whirlwind of emotions. Laura and I tried to maintain a semblance of normalcy, but the tension between us was palpable. Every glance, every word exchanged, felt loaded with unspoken accusations and hurt. I knew I had to address the elephant in the room head-on, rather than let the silence erode what was left of our marriage. One evening, after putting our son, Ethan, to bed, I decided it was time. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation. Laura was lounging on the couch, engrossed in a book, her posture relaxed and seemingly indifferent. The contrast between her calm demeanor and the storm raging inside me was stark. "Laura," I began, my voice steady despite the turmoil within, "we need to talk." She looked up, her expression unreadable. "About what?" she asked, her tone dismissive. "About Ethan's paternity," I stated plainly. Her eyes flickered with a hint of unease, but she quickly masked it with a cold indifference. "The DNA test confirmed that he's not mine." She closed her book with a sharp snap, her facade of composure cracking ever so slightly. "So what if he's not? It doesn't change anything." I felt a surge of anger but restrained it, remembering my commitment to handle this with the confidence I prided myself on. "It changes everything, Laura. We're married. We've built a life together. How could you do this?" Her laugh was bitter, devoid of any remorse. "Oh, please. Do you think I needed a reason? I was bored, unhappy even. This was the only way to make you see that." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I had always believed our marriage was strong, but her admission shattered that illusion. "Unhappy? When? We've been through so much together." She shrugged, her eyes hardening. "Maybe not as much as you think. Maybe you were too wrapped up in your career, too focused on your image to see what was right in front of you." I took a step closer, my voice firm. "That's not true, Laura. I've always tried to balance everything. Maybe we just lost our way, but that's on both of us." Her expression twisted into something colder, almost hostile. "Don't play the victim. You were too busy climbing the corporate ladder to notice that I was suffocating. Ethan is just a reminder of your failures as a husband." I felt a pang of hurt, but I maintained my composure. "I won't let your bitterness ruin what we have left. I want to be there for Ethan, regardless of who his father is." She scoffed, shaking her head. "You think you're so noble, don't you? But you're not. You're just like everyone else, using me and taking me for granted." The room seemed to grow colder as the weight of her accusations hung in the air. I realized that Laura wasn't just being hurtful. She was deeply entrenched in her resentment, using this moment to lash out and deflect from her own actions. "Laura, this isn't the time or place for this," I said, trying to reach out to her. "We need to find a way to move forward, for Ethan's sake." She stood abruptly, the movement sharp and filled with tension. "Move forward? How? By pretending nothing happened? By letting you continue to live your perfect little life, while I'm the one who's lost everything?" Before I could respond, she turned and stormed out of the room, leaving me standing there, stunned and hurt. I knew this was just the beginning of a long and painful journey to uncover the truth and confront the betrayal. Determined not to let her continue to manipulate the situation, I decided to delve deeper into Laura's recent activities. Late nights at work, increased social outings, something didn't add up. My intuition told me there was more to her story, and I was resolved to find out what it was. A few days later, I received an anonymous tip about a potential lead. It directed me to a local bar where Laura had been spending time in the weeks leading up to the gala. My heart raced as I approached the establishment, the memory of that fateful night resurfacing with every step. Inside, the atmosphere was vibrant, filled with laughter and music. I scanned the room, searching for any sign of Laura. There she was, at the bar, laughing with a man I didn't recognize. My jaw tightened, but I kept my composure, deciding to observe rather than confront her outright. As the night progressed, I noticed subtle interactions, furtive glances, lingering touches that confirmed my worst fears. Laura was involved with someone else, and it was clear that their relationship was more than just casual. My mind raced with questions and doubts, but I knew I needed concrete evidence before making any moves. Leaving the bar, I felt a mix of emotions: anger, betrayal, and a growing sense of determination. Laura had not only cheated on me but was also actively trying to cover her tracks, using her charm and wit to manipulate those around her. It was clear that taking her at her word would be futile. She was a master at deceit, and I needed to be equally strategic. Back home, I began to piece together the puzzle. Financial records, phone logs, and social media activity all pointed to a carefully orchestrated plan to hide her infidelity. It was clear that Laura had not only betrayed me but had also taken steps to ensure that the truth remained buried. But as I dug deeper, I stumbled upon something unexpected: a series of encrypted messages between Laura and the man she had been seeing. The content hinted at a deeper, more sinister motive behind her actions, suggesting that there was more at play than just a fleeting affair. Determined to uncover the full extent of her deceit, I sought the help of a private investigator. Together, we uncovered a web of lies and manipulation that went far beyond what I had initially imagined. Laura was involved in schemes that threatened not only our marriage, but also the stability of her professional and social standing. The more I delved into Laura's secret life, the deeper the shadows of her deceit became. Each discovery peeled back another layer of the woman I thought I knew, revealing a complexity I had never anticipated. The encrypted messages hinted at more than just infidelity. They suggested manipulation and a carefully constructed facade designed to obscure her true intentions. With the private investigator's help, we uncovered that Laura had been involved in a series of financial manipulations. She had siphoned funds from her high-profile charity work, redirecting money to accounts she controlled. This revelation was a bombshell, adding a new dimension to her betrayal. It wasn't just about a broken marriage. Laura was orchestrating a larger scheme that threatened her reputation and our financial stability. Confronting her again felt different this time. Armed with evidence of her financial deceit, I approached her with a newfound resolve. "Laura, we need to talk about the financial discrepancies and your involvement in the charity funds." Her reaction was swift and volatile. "You're accusing me of theft? After everything else?" Her voice dripped with sarcasm and anger. "Do you think you're some kind of hero? Maybe it's time you look at your own failures instead of trying to ruin mine." I maintained my composure, presenting the evidence calmly. "This isn't about heroism, Laura. It's about honesty. You betrayed me in every possible way, and now you're jeopardizing everything we've built." Her facade began to crumble under the weight of the evidence. "Fine," she snapped, her anger morphing into desperation. "Yes, I took the money. But what about you? You're no saint either. Your relentless pursuit of success has destroyed our marriage. Maybe this was the only way to get your attention." Her admission was both a relief and a new source of pain. It confirmed that her betrayal was multifaceted, driven by a combination of personal dissatisfaction and moral corruption. As the truth unfolded, so did my understanding of the depth of her deceit. Determined to protect our future and ensure that Laura could no longer manipulate or harm me, I began to formulate a plan for revenge. It wasn't enough to confront her. She needed to face the consequences of her actions in a way that matched the coldness she had shown me. The first step was to secure our financial situation. I consulted with my lawyer to initiate divorce proceedings, ensuring that I was legally protected from any of her financial schemes. Simultaneously, I began documenting all of her fraudulent activities, preparing to present a solid case that would not only end our marriage, but also hold her accountable for her misdeeds. As the legal battle commenced, Laura's true nature became even more apparent. She employed every tactic to undermine me, from spreading false rumors to leveraging her social connections to tarnish my reputation. Her bitterness fueled a relentless campaign of deceit, but I remained steadfast, using my confidence and strategic thinking to counter her every move. Amidst the turmoil, I discovered another shocking truth. Laura had been involved with multiple men, not just the one from the bar. It seemed her actions were part of a larger pattern of manipulation and control, using relationships as a means to an end. This revelation added another layer to her character, painting her not just as a betrayed wife, but as a calculated and manipulative individual. As the divorce proceedings intensified, I decided it was time to take things further. I couldn't allow Laura's actions to go unpunished, not just for me, but for anyone else she might have deceived. I collaborated with authorities to expose her financial fraud, ensuring that her actions would have lasting repercussions. Laura's world began to unravel. Her reputation took a hit as the truth about her financial manipulations came to light. Friends who once admired her now distanced themselves, and her social standing plummeted. The very circles where she thrived became hostile environments, isolating her from the support she once relied on. But the final act of my revenge was yet to come. I had discovered that Laura had been planning to flee the country, using the stolen funds to start anew elsewhere. Determined to stop her, I coordinated with law enforcement to intercept her plans. The night she was set to leave, authorities swooped in, arresting her before she could escape. Standing in the courtroom as Laura faced the consequences of her actions was a vindicating moment. The woman who had once been my partner, my confidant, and now my adversary, was finally being held accountable. Her lies, her manipulation, and her betrayal had all been exposed, and justice was served. As I watched her being led away, a sense of closure washed over me. The path to revenge had been arduous and dark, but it had restored my sense of self and reaffirmed my confidence. I had reclaimed my life from the wreckage of deceit, emerging stronger and more resilient than ever before. Laura's arrest should have been the final chapter of our tumultuous story, the moment where justice prevailed, and I could finally begin to rebuild my shattered life. Instead, it marked the beginning of a deeper, more sinister journey that would test the very limits of my confidence and resilience. In the weeks that followed her incarceration, I attempted to immerse myself in work and fatherhood, striving to maintain a semblance of normalcy. However, the victory felt hollow. The legal battles had drained me, and the public fallout from Laura's schemes left a bitter taste in my mouth. Friends I once trusted distanced themselves, wary of becoming entangled in the chaos she had unleashed. One evening, as I was reviewing financial documents in my home office, a realization struck me. Laura's financial manipulations were only the tip of the iceberg. Hidden within the encrypted messages and fraudulent transactions were hints of something far more elaborate. She had connections that reached into the highest echelons of power, and her schemes were part of a larger network that I had yet to uncover. Determined to leave no stone unturned, I delved deeper into her activities. Late nights became routine as I pieced together the fragments of her deceit. What I discovered was staggering. Laura had been orchestrating a complex web of fraud, money laundering, and blackmail, leveraging her relationships to manipulate and control those around her. As I navigated this labyrinth of corruption, I realized that Laura was not acting alone. She had allies, individuals who were as ruthless and cunning as she was. These connections posed a significant threat, not just to me, but to anyone who dared to challenge her authority. The stakes were higher than I had ever imagined, and my pursuit of revenge was taking a dark, unforeseen turn. One night, while sifting through a series of encrypted emails, I stumbled upon a name that sent chills down my spine. Victor Marlowe, a notorious figure in the underground financial world. Marlowe was known for his involvement in high-stakes fraud and had a reputation for eliminating those who stood in his way. The implications were clear. Laura had been working with Marlowe, and now, by exposing her, I had inadvertently crossed paths with a formidable adversary. Panic set in as I considered the possibilities. Marlowe was a ghost, a shadowy presence that was rarely seen but always felt. He operated with impunity, protected by layers of secrecy and fear. If he discovered my role in dismantling Laura's empire, the consequences could be dire. My confidence, once unshakable, now wavered under the weight of this new threat. Undeterred, I refused to back down. My journey had already taken me into the depths of deception and betrayal, and I was not about to retreat now. I knew that to truly dismantle Laura's network, I would have to confront the darkness head-on, risking everything to ensure that justice was served. I reached out to the private investigator who had assisted me thus far, sharing the latest findings. Together, we devised a plan to gather irrefutable evidence against Marlowe and his associates. It was a dangerous game, one that required meticulous planning and unwavering resolve. The lines between right and wrong began to blur as we delved deeper into the underbelly of financial crime, navigating a world where loyalty was scarce and trust was a luxury we couldn't afford. As we closed in on Marlowe, the threats escalated. Anonymous messages, break-ins, and surveillance became part of my daily life. The once confident and composed husband was now a man on edge, haunted by the specter of retribution. Yet, the fire within me burned brighter, fueled by the desire to protect my family and expose the full extent of Laura's treachery. In a final, desperate move, Marlowe orchestrated a meeting, believing he could intimidate me into silence. The location was a secluded warehouse on the outskirts of town, a place where shadows loomed large and danger was palpable. As I approached the meeting spot, the gravity of the situation weighed heavily on me. This was no longer just about Laura. It was about confronting the very embodiment of corruption and fear. Inside the warehouse, the atmosphere was tense. Marlowe stood confidently, flanked by his henchmen, a sinister smile playing on his lips. "You've been quite the troublemaker," he remarked, his voice dripping with disdain. "But this ends now." I met his gaze steadily, refusing to show any sign of weakness. "Your reign of terror is over, Marlowe. I'm here to bring you down, just as I did with Laura." A cold silence followed, the air thick with anticipation. In that moment, I realized that my quest for revenge had transformed me. The confident husband who had once relied solely on his intellect and resilience was now a man willing to confront the darkest aspects of human nature to achieve his goals. The ensuing confrontation was intense, a battle of wills and wits. Marlowe underestimated my determination, and I capitalized on his arrogance, using the evidence we had painstakingly gathered to dismantle his operations. The fight was not just physical but psychological, each move calculated to outmaneuver the other. In the end, justice prevailed once more. Marlowe was apprehended, his empire crumbling around him. The victory was bittersweet, marred by the realization of how far I had descended in my pursuit of retribution. The lines between right and wrong had blurred, and the cost of revenge weighed heavily on my conscience. As I stood amidst the wreckage of Marlowe's downfall, I couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought me here. The betrayal, the deceit, the relentless pursuit of truth. It had changed me in ways I hadn't anticipated. The confidence I once held had been tempered by the darkness I had encountered, leaving me with a complex mix of satisfaction and remorse. The sun had barely risen, casting a pale light through the blinds of my home office. The events of the past months had left me exhausted, both mentally and emotionally. Laura was behind bars, her network dismantled, and Victor Marlowe had been apprehended. The courtroom battles, the sleepless nights, and the constant fear of retribution had taken their toll. Yet, amidst the chaos, a lingering sense of unfinished business gnawed at me. As I sat at my desk, reviewing the final settlement papers, a thought persisted. Laura's actions had not only destroyed our marriage but had also exposed me to dangers I hadn't fully comprehended. The revelation of her deeper connections hinted that her betrayal was part of a larger, more calculated plan. It was as if she had orchestrated everything meticulously, ensuring that my downfall was as complete as hers. A knock on the door interrupted my thoughts. It was the private investigator, Mark, who had been my steadfast ally throughout this ordeal. His face was grim, the lines etched from sleepless nights and relentless pursuit of the truth. "We found something else," Mark began, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. He handed me a folder, his eyes meeting mine with a seriousness that spoke volumes. I opened it cautiously, scanning the contents. Photos, documents, and a series of coded messages filled the pages. One document stood out, a series of photographs depicting Laura in various compromising situations, not just with Marlowe but with several other influential men. Each image was time-stamped and location-tagged, forming a web of indiscretions that painted Laura as a master manipulator who had used her charm to exploit those around her for personal gain. "This goes beyond financial fraud and infidelity," Mark explained. Laura was playing a dangerous game, leveraging relationships to secure power and control. These photos could ruin her completely, even from behind bars. A chill ran down my spine. Laura had been more cunning and ruthless than I had ever imagined. Her ability to manipulate situations and people was not just limited to our marriage. It extended into every facet of her life, leaving a trail of destruction in her wake. As I delved deeper into the folder, another document caught my attention, an unaltered audio recording of a conversation between Laura and Marlowe. Their voices, laced with tension and conspiratorial tones, hinted at a plan that went beyond mere financial schemes. They spoke of eliminating threats and ensuring their secrets remained buried. It was clear that Laura had orchestrated not just her downfall, but had potentially set the stage for future chaos. The realization hit me hard. Laura was still a threat, even incarcerated. Her ability to manipulate and control was not confined to her physical presence. She had built a network that could easily adapt and continue her schemes, making her a lingering danger long after her arrest. Determined to ensure that Laura could no longer cause harm, I made a decision that would alter the course of my life irrevocably. The legal avenues had their limits, and to truly neutralize the threat she posed, more drastic measures were necessary. The confidence that had once been my hallmark now mingled with a darker resolve. I began to meticulously plan my next move, leveraging every resource at my disposal. Financial records, communication logs, and the evidence Mark had provided formed the foundation of a strategy aimed at eradicating Laura's influence once and for all. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about safeguarding my future and ensuring that Laura couldn't rise again. Late one night, I received an encrypted message that seemed to confirm my suspicions. Laura was attempting to manipulate her legal representation, seeking ways to exploit loopholes and regain her freedom. This was the final straw. I couldn't allow her to escape justice or continue her reign of deceit. Utilizing the encrypted messages we had previously decrypted, I traced Laura's attempts to bribe and manipulate key figures within the legal system. With Mark's help, we exposed these efforts, ensuring that every move she made was documented and used against her. The authorities were left with no choice but to tighten security around her case, effectively neutralizing any further attempts at manipulation. But Laura was not one to accept defeat gracefully. She retaliated by spreading malicious rumors, attempting to tarnish my reputation and isolate me from the few allies I had left. Her bitterness had transformed into a relentless pursuit of vengeance, but I remained unshaken. My confidence, once a source of strength, had now become a shield against her persistent attacks. The final act of my revenge was both calculated and cold. I orchestrated a scenario where Laura's remaining assets were seized, leaving her with nothing but the confines of her cell. Her financial empire, built on lies and manipulation, was dismantled piece by piece, ensuring that she could no longer exert any influence outside prison walls. Every step was executed with precision, leaving no room for her to recover or rebuild. As I watched Laura lose the remnants of her power, a sense of closure washed over me. The woman who had once been my wife, my confidant, and now my adversary, was finally stripped of her ability to cause further harm. Her empire of deceit was reduced to ashes, and with it, the shadows that had haunted my life began to dissipate. Yet, the journey had left deep scars. The lines I had crossed in my pursuit of justice weighed heavily on my conscience. The The man I had become was a far cry from the confident husband I once was. The darkness I had embraced to dismantle Laura's network had changed me irrevocably, leaving me to grapple with the cost of my revenge. In the aftermath, I focused on rebuilding my life. Ethan needed me, and despite everything, my love for him remained unwavering. I sought therapy to address the trauma and guilt that plagued me, striving to find a balance between the man I was and the shadows I had encountered. One evening, as I sat on the porch watching Ethan play in the yard, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The storm had passed, and though the scars would remain, I was beginning to heal. Laura's betrayal had been the catalyst for a journey that had tested my limits and reshaped my very essence. But through it all, my confidence had endured, tempered by the lessons learned and the resilience forged in the fires of adversity. As the sun set, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, I reflected on the path I had taken. Revenge had been a necessary step to reclaim my life, but it had come at a great cost. The darkness I had embraced was now a part of me, a reminder of the lengths I had gone to protect what mattered most. In the end, I emerged stronger, wiser, and more aware of the fragility of trust and the depths of human deceit. The journey had been harrowing, filled with twists and turns that I could never have anticipated. But it had also reaffirmed my belief in resilience, the power of truth, and the unwavering strength of a father's love. As I looked toward the future, I vowed to use the lessons learned to build a life grounded in honesty, integrity, and the unwavering pursuit of peace. The shadows of the past would always linger, but with each passing day, the light of a new beginning shone a little brighter.